everyone. Welcome to episode 242 of the Book Cougars, two middle-aged women on the hunt for a good read. I'm Emily.
And I'm Chris.
Should we start with a thank you right away?
Yes, we would like to thank Lisa, who is our newest member over on Patreon. Thank you so much. And thanks to everyone who's a member over there on Patreon. We appreciate your support so much. It does help us with the costs of the podcast tremendously.
Thank you. And Lisa and I had a really nice exchange about a book that I happened to read for Big Book Summer. So maybe we should just jump in.
Yes, we're going to do a bit of a recap here of our Big Book Summer reading. If you're new to our podcast, the Big Book Summer Reading Challenge is something that Sue Jackson, who is a booktuber, blogger, Book by Book is the title of her channel. She's been doing this for over 10 years.
A long time. Yeah. And this year, she decided to bring in a co-host to help her out.
Yes. So Melinda of A Web of Stories, who's a booktuber, is co-hosting this year, or was, because the time has passed. This is a reading challenge where you read a book or books, 400 pages or more, between Memorial Day and Labor Day. It's just, low stress, just a good community to dive into big books with, because there's a lot of talk online about different big books and on YouTube and stuff. So it's a lot of fun, and we've been doing it for years now. So we just thought we'd give you a quick rundown of the books that we read. And thanks, Sue and Melinda, again, for co-hosting this fantastic event. We did a video over on YouTube where we talk a little bit more about the books that we've read, so we won't go into great detail here.
Yeah, and we'll put a link in the show notes so you can find the video. Do you want me to go first?
Please.
Last summer, my Big Book Summer reading got co-opted by a grandchild. This summer, I read more big books than I thought I would. We will also put a link in the show notes to the books that were hopefuls, so you can watch our before video and our after video. So the books I did finish were The Emperor of Gladness by Ocean Vuong. This came in at 416 pages. Buckeye by Patrick Ryan, and that was 464 pages. Will likely hit my top 10 this year. Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, 410 pages. Also a square on our Ghost bingo card if you are playing along. And The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna, 435 pages. Lastly, The Peculiar Gift of July by Ashley Ream, 416 pages. That was a surprise book that I took home over the weekend and finished on Labor Day, the last day of the challenge.
And I read The Shining by Stephen King. That was a reread. That was 659 pages. A Fever in the Heartland, The Ku Klux Klan's Plot to Take Over America and the Woman Who Stopped Them by Timothy Egan. This was 432 pages. I listened to it on audio. It was 10 hours and 28 minutes, I believe. And then I also read 80 Days, Nellie Bly and Elizabeth Bisland's History-Making Race Around the World by Matthew Goodman. This one came in at 453 pages, and I adored that book so much.
Ooh, it sounds like we both might have had a top 10 read of the year in our big books.
Yes.
That's exciting. Let us know about your Big Book Summer if you participated. We would love to hear from you. You can email us at bookcougars@gmail.com. Reach out to us on social media. All of our handles are at Book Cougars. We're focusing on Facebook and Instagram now. You can find us there. Chris, what are you currently reading?
Well, I'm currently reading two big books that I started and will be continuing on with. The first is Margaret Fuller, Collected Writings, and this is a big book newly put out by the Library of America. And I've been reading it this summer with a fantastic group of readers, and we've had some Zoom conversations. We have our last Zoom conversation coming up September 20th. So I'm in the last third of the book at this point. And then I'm also reading The Weight of Ink by Rachel Kadish. This was on my list of hopefuls to read for Big Book Summer. It is a big chunkster, and I started it just, I think, a couple days before Labor Day weekend, and I was going to force myself to jam on it, but I was like, just relax and just read it and enjoy it. So yeah, more to come on that.
I'm also reading one that I was hopeful to get through over the summer for big books. I've talked about it several times. Chasing Beauty, The Life of Isabella Stewart Gardner. We also talked about our trip to the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum on the last episode up in Boston. Beautiful museum. We highly recommend it. Isabella Stewart Gardner rubs shoulders with so many people. Henry James, Edith Wharton, Sarah Orne Jewett. I wanted to read a quote to my buddy Chris, who happens to be a graduate of Simmons College, because one of the board members appears in this book. Fanny Baker Ames, a leading suffragist and board member of the newly formed Simmons College, Isabella's near neighbor on the Fenway, expressed a common theme of several letter writers that spring. Our life in America is so often banal, and so far as beauty is concerned, so Sahara-like, that we owe a more than common debt of gratitude to one who gives us such a chance to see beauty so enthroned in harmonious surroundings. Isn't that lovely?
Yes.
This is the part of the book where the museum has opened and people are starting to come visit, and it's quite a success. So I am really enjoying this book. I, too, decided not to try to force myself to get through it for Big Book Summer, and I've just been reading it on audio and then checking back to the hardcover to see the pictures that Natalie Dykstra is referring to throughout. Great book. Chasing Beauty, The Life of Isabella Stewart Gardner.
And I'm also reading Positive Obsession, The Life and Times of Octavia F. Butler by Susanna M. Morris. This is a new biography of Octavia Butler. I've read, I think, only 2 of her novels, but they're 2 of like my all-time favorites, Fledgling and then Kindred. 2 great novels. Kindred really set off her career. She'd published prior to that, but Kindred was the one that made a huge splash. And then Fledgling was her last novel before her untimely death. I started reading this on my phone because I was in New York City. I was up on the west side doing research, and I walked down to the 125th train at Harlem to get on the train, and it was packed. And I didn't feel like digging around in my backpack, so I just pulled my phone out of my pocket and opened up my Kindle app, and I was like, okay, I'm going to read that. And I read like 26% of it on the train. Really, it's a really well written, like it just moves along quickly. I didn't know much about Butler at all, so it's really great to start learning more about her and her literary ambitions from being a young girl and her pursuit of them.
I'm so glad you're reading that. I've seen the cover, which is beautiful. It has a beautiful image of her later in her life, and I know a lot of our listeners are interested in reading that.
Yeah.
I'm also reading Sick Houses by Layla Taylor. This is a nonfiction book. Sick Houses, Haunted Homes, and the Architecture of Dread. So I'm reading this for our ghost story theme this year, and she's a really compelling writer. The book is separated into different chapters about the type of houses: American houses, brutal houses, witch houses, mad houses. It goes on and on. I thought I would just read this one little part, and I'm practicing using Terry Gross's style of dog-earing pages, which I don't usually do. For any of you that haven't seen it, there's kind of a viral video going around about how Terry Gross, the host of Fresh Air, reads books where she's going to interview people on her show. And she has this really interesting way of doing different kind of dog earing depending on how she's going to use it. I'm not sure it's going to work for me because I think you do kind of need to know where to look at on the page once you dog ear it.
Yeah, she dog ears it and then she writes on it. Like she circles things and underlines. And
yeah.
I don't know how much you write in your books. You don't really write in your books a whole lot, do you?
I don't.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
I have a hard time with it, but I'm trying to be better about it because, you know, it's helpful. Partly because you can find your thoughts easier because you wrote it down. But I also just think when you put pen to paper, you remember things, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. In this book, what she's doing is looking at the theme of haunted houses in literature and in movies and in television. But I thought this was really interesting where she just talks about what a house is. There is an identity attached to home ownership, a cohabitation of the self and the architecture. You are a homeowner, not a house owner. We don't go to haunted homes on Halloween, and it's not the haunting of Hill Home. A house is a thing made of wood, brick, drywall, and glass. A home is a state of being. A house doesn't become a home until it's claimed, occupied, until the territory has been marked, until you feel comfortable, safe, until you feel at home. I thought that was a really interesting distinction about houses and homes. And she's also looking at this through the lens of Black home ownership and how Blacks are treated in television and films and in hauntings, which is an interesting take as well. I highly recommend it. We also do have a square for nonfiction on our Ghost Bingo card, and I intend to check it off when I read this. Again, it's called Sick Houses, Haunted Homes, and the Architecture of Dread by Layla Taylor.
Nice. I'm glad you're digging into that one.
Yeah, and this is out from Repeater Press, and thank you to them for sending us these copies.
So, Emily, what have you just read?
I finished Goodbye Without Leaving by Laurie Colwin. Laurie Colwin is a writer that died prematurely in her late 40s from a heart attack, unexpectedly. She was very well known for her novel writing, short stories, and essays, particularly in Gourmet magazine. She was a food writer and a cook. I love her writing. I picked up a copy of this book at Brattle Bookshop when we were up there in Boston. It's a used copy. And one day I just wanted to read something that was a good story but didn't have too much sadness in it because of the books I'm going to talk about after I talk about this one. And I wanted something I could get in the hammock with and maybe do that thing where you read a book in a day. Mm-hmm. I didn't read it in a day. I read it in a couple of days. And this book was originally published in 1990. They are putting out new editions of Colwin's novels with new, really fun covers. And there was a new edition that was published in 2021. But I have one of these older versions that was published in 1990. It's about a woman named Geraldine Colshares. She's in college. She loves music. She loves dancing and singing. And she gets an opportunity to go on the road with the Shakeleys, a touring musical group, Black musicians. She's the only white Shakette. I think that's how you pronounce it. The backup singer, backup dancers. So the beginning of the novel is about her being young and on the road. And then a man starts following the group, not in a creepy way. He's a groupie. And they end up falling in love. And as the Shakeleys get more popular and a bigger following, they're not really interested in having a white Shakette anymore. And she goes off back to New York and lives a more pedestrian life as a wife and as a mother in a time where she didn't have as much to do. And the normal, I'm saying, quote, normal life was to get married and have a baby. And think about the very big difference between being on tour as a backup singer and then living a somewhat pedestrian life in New York City. So the novel walks you through that and her getting pregnant and trying to find a meaningful life, which I really appreciated. She didn't shy away from looking at that and how your life changes when you have a child. There's also a thread in here with a character that is a Holocaust survivor that I'm sure when Colwin was writing this back in 1990, this sentence might feel different when you're reading it today than when she wrote it in 1990. The character Geraldine is mortified because she's staring at the woman's tattoo from Auschwitz. And the woman says, "Oh, Geraldine, please don't be silly. Why should a nice American girl not look? These things do not happen here, thank God." And I read that, and in our current political climate, I thought, I wonder what Colwin would think today. We're not going to get political on the podcast, but I just did have that thought as I was reading it. Colwin is one of those authors that I would really love to become a completist. I've read 2 of her novels and one of her books of essays that have recipes and essays about food and life. So again, it's called Goodbye Without Leaving. I loved it so much.
Nice. Well, I finished The Improbable Victoria Woodhull by Eden Collinsworth. This just published from Doubleday, biography of Victoria Woodhull, who was known as the first woman to run for president of the United States. And that may make her sound like a certain type of person. Upstanding, responsible, politically active. And she was not exactly that. Victoria came from a family of charlatans and fraudsters, to use some of Collinsworth's languaging. And it's really interesting. It's a biography. It's, cradle to grave kind of biography, very short chapters. And I talked about it in the last episode, so I won't go into great detail here today. But that made it very compulsively readable, keeping me turning the pages. When I finished it, I thought there are other biographies of Woodhull, and I'd like to kind of dig into some to know a little bit more of the details with some of these relationships she had. Like you were mentioning, Isabel Stewart Gardner rubbed shoulders with a wide array of people. Victoria Woodhull did as well. Maybe not quite as broadly, but she touched a lot of lives. And she and her sister were both kind of fraudsters, but also passionate people about what they cared about. But it was hard to tell. Their parents were very much, I would say, abusive. They pretty much farmed out their daughters, possibly as prostitutes, then as spiritualists, as young women, and then later women who could see spirits and talk with spirits to help loved ones see where their loved ones have gone after they died. This is just post-Civil War, time of big change. And Collinsworth makes the point that in times of change, fraudsters usually thrive. And she has a footnote that refers to this as a kind of a grand American tradition. And she lists some prominent contemporary politicians to us and some of the things that they've done. And it also made me think of the book that we read and the author we spoke with, Mike Branch. We talked with him about his book, Jackalope. And that is about the jackalope, the whole history of the jackalope. But Branch does also talk about the American tradition of, tricksters and fraudsters and good-natured jokes. So Victoria's fascinating. She's one of those people who did so many different things in the United States, in England. She and her sister both managed to marry super wealthy men. And these are women who became wealthy and lost their wealth and then gained their wealth back multiple times over. So a fascinating family. And as much as Victoria was locked in with some major movements going on in the United States, like the spiritualist movement, financial investing, the suffragist movement, she made partnerships as well as great enemies, sometimes within the same people. So it was a dicey life that she lived. And one of the things I already mentioned in the last episode was that there was an archivist working in the British Museum who Woodhull sued. And she sued the museum for libel. And what Collinsworth does early on in the book is she sets it up kind of like she's looking at the archivist's archives and the research he did on her, because he was fascinated, appalled, curious about her. So that is not something, though, that gets totally carried through the whole book. And I would have liked to have seen more of that, unless it's not there and it was just something set up in the beginning. But I was looking forward to learning a little bit more about him, and she does bring him back towards the end. Really enjoyed it. It would make a wild movie. I want to read more about everything, as do you. That's the problem.
Yes.
Sometimes one book leads to 500 others. But this is, I thought, a really great introduction to her. Again, that's The Improbable Victoria Woodhull by Eden Collinsworth. It's out now.
Excellent. So I read 2 books that I talked about in currently reading segment last episode that I have now read. The Wedding People by Alison Espach and Hotel Silence by Auđur Ava Ólafsdóttir. And they both have a theme of suicide, which is why I'm choosing to talk about them together. They're very different novels. The Wedding People takes place just after the pandemic in the 2021-2022 era. The protagonist, Phoebe, has had a failed marriage, not uncommon after the pandemic, I think, and a lot of infertility, unhappiness in her life and where she's at. So she decides to go to a very fancy hotel in Newport, Rhode Island, where she is going to commit suicide. And she happens upon this hotel that actually had been rented out, supposedly only for a wedding party. But somehow she manages to get a reservation. So everyone thinks there she is for the wedding, including the bride, which is an easy mistake to make because you think, oh, she's just one of the groom's family that I don't know yet, right? And they become friends, and slight spoiler alert, but it happens very early in the novel. She does not commit suicide. She decides to continue to befriend these people and be part of the wedding party. It's got a great cast of characters. I can see why the book is so popular. It'd be a fantastic book club pick. It was a page turner, great summer read. I really enjoyed it. One of the things that's fun about it is it's very sex positive. There is sex and pleasuring of yourself, which I appreciate very much. There's humor, and it's really about a young woman who's had a failed marriage, taking back her life and moving forward. I enjoyed it very much. Thank you to Aunt Ellen who put it in my hands, because as I said on the last episode, the title did turn me off just a little bit because I have some issues with weddings.
Nice.
And then Hotel Silence was translated from the Icelandic by Brian Fitzgibbon. It was the winner of the Icelandic Literature Prize. I picked this up in Minnesota in a little free library. Actually, the gentleman caller picked it up and then suggested I read it. I had a hard time with this, just with the pace of it. It was a little bit slow, and I think some of that probably did have to do with the translation. But the themes were somewhat similar to The Wedding People, yet different, because it was much darker. The man is another failed marriage. He has a daughter, and he decides to go to a hotel in a war-torn country to kill himself, and has it planned out. He brings the equipment to do it. And one of the things that I find very troublesome about the theme, there's many troublesome things about suicide, of course, but is the person who's going to find you. Someone's going to find you. And the consequences of that can be really fraught for the people who do. And so he goes to this hotel, and he too learns that what's happening in his life in comparison to a war-torn country, maybe there are some lessons there for him. And that's all I'm going to say about that. There is a theme about scars in this novel that's kind of interesting. And Auđur has a list of notes in the back as to why she chose those and reference points for them. They're not really footnotes, but she does reference the pages. I would read more from this author. I did think it was a very interesting novel. Again, it was called Hotel Silence by Auđur Ava Ólafsdóttir.
Good pronunciation.
Thank you. I practiced.
I am reading The Ghost Stories of Edith Wharton. I'm doing this as a buddy read with Sean of Sean Breathes Books and two other guys, Dorian and James. We have an informal Edith Wharton group, apparently. This is, I think, the third book of hers we're going to be discussing. The edition that I'm holding in my sweaty little hands right now is one that I picked up when we went to the Mount on October 26th, 2022. So far, I've read the first two stories, The Lady's Maid's Bell, which is a story of a young woman who's a servant who goes to be a lady's maid at a big house that doesn't have a great reputation. There's been some turnover with the lady's maid, and, you know, I just couldn't help but think of the Mount as I was reading this and picturing the different rooms and the great kitchen and the maid's bells, and also Downton Abbey. I was picturing the servants' quarters up there because some of the action takes place up in the servants' quarters and then in the main house. It was a good story. I really enjoyed this one. It was so vivid. And I know part of that is, like I just mentioned, shows that I've seen that give me that visual. But also the way Wharton describes people and their behavior makes it so you just can't help but visualize it. And I know not everybody is a visual reader in that way, but that story could be one that touches a lot of people in that manner. And then the other story was The Eyes, which is a creepy story about a bunch of dudes hanging out in the, dark wooden panel library, fire going. They're smoking their cigars and they start telling ghost stories. And after most of the men leave, the core group of like 3 guys are like, we want to hear a ghost story from you if you've ever seen a ghost or 2. And the old man says, I've seen 2. So then he goes to relate things that he's done when these eyes pop up and they scare him. They scare him and then they don't. But initially he says, for they got into the damnable habit of coming back. They reminded me of vampires with a taste for young flesh. They seemed so to gloat over the taste of a good conscience. So another good creepy tale.
Remember when we were at the Mount, we asked, and we were in the library, and we asked them if people ever saw or felt ghosts, and they said yes.
Yes. People have felt things.
Yes.
Yes. Not just like cold rooms or cold corners in a room or walking through a cold area, but people have actually felt touched.
Yeah.
Or sat upon. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, there was a troupe of actors that spent a bunch of time there, and they said they did. And then they also do like an artist residency there. So it wasn't just one person, it was multiple people.
Right. Yeah, over multiple decades.
Yeah.
Yep. So there are more. I think there's 12 or 13 stories all told in this collection. Edith Wharton, I always love her.
Yeah, I need to read her. I read a couple of the ghost stories when we went up to the Mount, remember? And we talked about them on the way.
We read some of the ones that are set in New England in particular, which are really good as well. And this is going to be an interesting experience because Sean dislikes ghost stories. Oh, there you go. But he was kind of pushed into reading this collection. Sorry, Sean. Well, he could just let all the other 3 of you talk about it. Your thing about Edith Wharton and descriptions made me remember that I wanted to read you was a description that Laurie Colwin wrote in Goodbye Without Leaving. Food writers, I think, have to practice how to describe things, in different ways. And so I find her descriptions of people and situations so fun to read. This is one where she's pregnant. Geraldine is pregnant, and she's talking to her husband about friends of theirs and wondering about her own baby, which is in her stomach still. I said she was pregnant. Well, what about Steve and Ginger's children? I said. Steve was a colleague of Johnny's, and Ginger, his repellent wife, was a city planner. Their 2 children, Jason and Samantha, were horribly ill-behaved. They threw food, whined, and had the posture of 2 almost empty sacks. They were the sort of children I liked least, scrawny and undercooked looking, with what seemed to be some chronic nasal blockage that caused their mouths to hang open, giving them the aura of those very morons Johnny claimed to know something about. These gruesome children, who their parents claimed had the IQs of geniuses, gave me new cause for insomnia. Supposing I produced a child like one of Steve and Ginger's. That's funny. Oh, every pregnant person's nightmare. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry. I digress. What else did I read? The Peculiar Gift of July by Ashley Ream. My last big book of the summer that I finished on September 1st. We get a lot of emails from publishers. We're very lucky. We get emails from publicists, publishers, authors, and I read every email, and sometimes we say yes to books and sometimes we can't because we can't read everything. But this one really caught my eye because it takes place on Eby's End, a fictional small town on an island off the coast of Seattle. Think of the San Juan Islands or Bainbridge Island or Whidbey Island. She based it on that, but she made up her own name for the island. It's about Anita, who works on the island. She's taking care of her father, who had a stroke and was the owner of the local grocery store. And now she works there full time. And she kind of has a staid life. She lives above the grocery store. She's not in a relationship. She's just going to the grocery store and working every day. But one of the things I really appreciate about her character is she knows everything about everybody on the island by watching the groceries they buy. And she talks about that in the novel, and it's really sweet. And she can see how something might have changed based on their buying preferences.
She gets a phone call one day that an estranged cousin of hers has passed away, and she had an adopted child, a teenager that now needs a home. And she agrees to take the child. So she arrives on this island. Think kind of the Gilmore Girls. It's not quite the same as that, but there is that cast of characters and store owners that's really popular on the Gilmore Girls. But you also have that island culture where it becomes very insular because there's only so much you can do, especially in the dead of winter when the ferry might not be running. And July, this teenager comes and blends into the town and has her own past that she's trying to unpack as an adopted child. And she also might have some gifts. There's a little magical realism that comes into play that I really enjoyed as well. This was over 400 pages, and I read it in just a couple of days and really enjoyed it. This is Ashley Ream's third book. Her first novel, Clementine, the debut, was a big hit and became book club picks, I think, and is being made into either a television series or a movie. So some of you, particularly Pacific Northwesterners, might know of her. Again, it's called The Peculiar Gift of July by Ashley Ream, and I really enjoyed it. And this comes out, I believe, on October 25th.
Nice. Well, I read two more things, and they were both by Mary Wilkins Freeman.
Oh.
Yes.
The author of The Wind in the Rosebush.
Yes, our ghost story.
Yes.
For this episode.
From the Penguin Book of Ghost Stories, from Elizabeth Gaskell to Ambrose Bierce. So that's exciting. So did you read The Wind in the Rosebush first, or did you read the other one first?
I read The Wind in the Rosebush first.
Obviously, you liked it.
I did like it very much. And then one of the books mentioned, or one of her stories is mentioned in the short biography in the Penguin book, caught my eye because it's a vampire story.
I saw that and highlighted it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, reminder, this is the book that has the different short stories, and then it has biographies of each of the authors in the back. And I saw that she wrote short story.
Short story, yeah. So that's the one that I read.
Sure. Bringing us into spooky season.
Yes. Happy September and then October. So I'm back to work at the library. The fall semester has started. And instead of just Googling it online and finding the short story, I looked at work, and we had a copy of Horror Stories, Classic Tales from Hoffman to Hodgson. This is edited by Darryl Jones, and it's a collection of short horror stories, many of which are the ones that are in the Penguin book that we're reading. There's some crossover here, like What Was It by Fitzjames O'Brien, the Charles Dickens story, Number One Branch Line, The Signal Man. Yeah, which I thought was kind of interesting. But instead of
The Wind in the Rosebush,
it had Luella Miller. Yeah. So one of the good things about working in a library.
Yes.
So yes, this is Luella Miller is the name of this story. That's a vampire story of sorts. So it's not, Dracula with his pointy teeth necessarily, or if any of that happens, it's off the page. It's a story about a woman in her house. The first sentence is, close to the village street stood the one-story house in which Luella Miller, who had an evil name in the village, had dwelt.
Ooh, that's a good sentence.
She had been dead for years, yet there were those in the village who, in spite of the clearer light which comes on a vantage point from a long past danger, half believed in the tale which they had heard from their childhood. So the tale of this woman is that she basically sucks everybody dry who comes to help her. These people come to her, like her first husband, example, vibrant, healthy, great-looking guy who slowly just gets the juice sucked out of him.
So did you see in the biography that, well, I don't know if this was in the biography or if I always go and then read more about them, that she had a very unhappy marriage, the author, so that kind of makes sense.
Well, like everybody gets sucked dry. Like women come to, work in her home for her. I think a cousin is one of the people, and they all end up pretty much perishing. The narrator is a local woman who lives across the street who is just fed up with it. And kind of has a moment. I won't give any spoilers. The ending was not what I anticipated at all. Didn't anticipate what actually happened.
But was it, will you say if it was good or bad, or you were happy with it?
It was satisfying.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it was satisfying, but it made me pause like, oh, wow. Yeah, interesting. So I enjoyed it.
So let's talk about The Wind in the Rosebush. So I did something different this time. I have been listening to the audiobook versions of these stories, but this time I decided to read whilst listening. It was about 40 minutes, I want to say. It's not one of our shortest short stories, but it's not particularly long either. And I too really enjoyed this one. And I felt like, oh, a ghosty one. Didn't it feel ghosty to you?
It did.
Yeah, I liked that part a lot.
And you felt like, so it starts with a woman who's traveling from Michigan to see her niece, who she plans on taking back with her because her parents are dead.
Right. Her sister died.
Yeah, her sister died. So she, and the woman who remarried the husband has been her caretaker, and the husband has died too.
Yes.
And so she's traveling to get this niece, and she sees people, she talks with people on a ferry who are like, you know that something's going on that they're not telling her, because the husband's like, basically, don't be getting in other people's business. Like, she'll find out.
Let her find out for herself.
Yes. So that's kind
as
of
all good hauntings are.
Right. That's kind of the setup of the story.
Right. And she gets to this house. So this is the sister-in-law that's replaced her sister. And she's being very vague about where her niece is. So she never gets to see her niece. Her niece is out playing with a friend. Her niece then goes out of town with a friend, you know, and she's getting more and more frustrated. And I was getting a little frustrated with her, like, get in the car and go find the niece, you know? Or
there is no car.
There is no car.
There is no phone.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine?
No.
I mean, it's a different time period.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the fact that she even got there is amazing, right?
Yeah.
And then there's all these weird little creepy visuals, like they sew a nightgown for the niece, and then the nightgown is folded on the bed waiting for the niece.
With a single rose on it.
Yes.
And the title, again, of this story is The Wind in the Rosebush.
Right.
There's a rose bush outside of this home with a single rose on it.
And it blew in the wind, and it wasn't a windy day.
Yeah.
So there's lots of little creepy things like that I really enjoyed. I liked her writing a lot. It was a really fun story. And we don't want to spoil what happens in this one because it really is, it's fun. It's fun to get to the end.
It was. And it was kind of surprising. It had a little bit of a Stephen King-esque vibe when you find out some things. I thought, oh, yeah, that's really kind of cool. And, you know, she was kind of dismissed as like a regionalist author,
right.
you know, who just wrote about local small towns and whatnot. But I don't know, this story, it spoke to me and it creeped me out.
Yeah,
and
it creeped me out.
It was published when? In like 1902 or something like that?
1903.
Okay.
And most of her stories took place in New England. This one did take place in Virginia.
Oh, was it in Virginia? I
Yeah.
missed that.
Well, I mean, that's partly because it tells you, when I was reading about it, it told you that in the reading, but also in the audiobook, which I actually found rather distracting. They use kind of a Southern twang that's a little bit heavy-handed for the person she goes to visit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, because she takes a train and then a ferry. Mm-hmm. But there's a train now that goes directly then from Virginia to Michigan with no stops or no connections, I think is what the point is that the woman who's there to collect her niece says.
Yeah, it was really good. Like I said, the audiobook was a little distracting for me. And I felt like the narrator, you know, like when there's heavy dialogue and you're trying to go back and forth from using a twang to not, there were a couple misses, but I still enjoyed reading it and listening. It helped me get through it in a good way. It built the tension in the story, you know?
Yeah. And I thought it was a good representation of these women.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because like there they are, these two women alone in this house that's like perfect and like has all this really wonderful new stuff in it. And the narrator says, well, isn't there any of my sister's things in the house? Because I think the niece would like to have something of her mother's. And she's like, oh, I got rid of all that old stuff.
But then she said, there's something in the attic. she used a very interesting word, which I don't remember now. It wasn't like ephemera. It was a different word for a few of the mom's things. She might want them. Yeah.
Yeah, good story. Oh, whistle, and I'll come to you, my lad, is the next story. Wow, we only have 5 stories.
I know. We are over 50%.
For sure.
Yeah.
Wow. It's gone pretty fast.
Depends on who you ask. Thank you to all of you who are reading along. We appreciate you so much.
Absolutely. It's been fun.
It has been fun. And reminder, this too is a square on your bingo card. Chris, did you have any Biblio adventures?
Well, I did, and most of them were with you. First up was we had our monthly reading salon with our patrons. So much fun. The topic this month was books you've wanted to throw across the room.
Right, or didn't finish. And we did realize as we were dialing in to talk to everyone that we had to be careful about spoilers because sometimes, the reason you don't finish or you want to throw it across the room is a huge spoiler. So we were all very careful when we were talking about it.
Yeah, it was hard. I mean, like one of my books, I don't think anyone in the world will ever read other than some poor historian or biographer. And so I said the reason why I didn't exactly throw it across the room, but I returned it to Crown Books the next day.
And I had deep regret after we hung up. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't mention All Fours by Miranda July, which was, I don't even want to talk about it, but it's, up for so many awards. So obviously there's something wrong with me. But I was like, I can't believe I didn't mention that one that night.
I know. There were so many good books tossed around. And, as always, somebody's book that they couldn't tolerate was somebody else's favorite. And I love that because that's the way it is when you're a reader. And, some of the books, like one that I had thrown across the room, Old Jewels by Marie Sandoz. Like I threw it, but I picked it up and I kept reading. Just
of course.
The dad was such a bastard, and it's just like,
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. It's a really good point. There's sometimes we throw it across the room because there's a plot point. Or for me, often the books that I thought a lot about as we were leading up to that night were characters that were killed off. That's upsetting. And so you want to throw the book across the room and be mad at the author. Like, why'd you do that to me? But then you pick it back up and read it.
Or you could be in a book club where somebody is saying racist things and the moderator is not handling the situation and you throw a book at the person. That could happen.
That could happen, Robin. Oh my gosh. She told a story of this situation we just described that they were reading, I think They're There or Wandering Stars by Tommy Orange.
I think They're There.
They're There.
Yeah.
And a couple of the participants were saying racist things. And she was really upset that the moderators weren't doing something about it. And then they said, we don't talk about political things here. But it's a political situation.
Right. You're by saying racist things, you are indeed being a political jackass. And so Robin tells the story that she threw the book at the person and walked out, and then a beat or two, and she says, and it wasn't even my book, it was a woman sitting next to me's book.
Oh, Robin, go on comedy tour.
Oh, my God.
That was the best part of the story. Like, she was so mad, and she didn't have her copy of the book there, so she grabbed her neighbor's. Oh, such a good story. As you can tell, we have a good time during these conversations, and we would love for you to join us if you are currently a patron at the $5 level or above. You are welcome to join us. If you haven't joined our Patreon community and you're thinking about it, please consider joining. It's easy to join and easy to stop your membership if you don't want to continue.
And usually what is said in salon stays in salon, but that story from Robin was too good not to share.
Yes, needed to be shared more widely. The next conversation will take place on Sunday, September 28th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We haven't chosen our subject this time. To be determined, a lot of different ideas were tossed out. So we also went on a joint jaunt to Kindred Thoughts bookstore in Bridgeport, which Chris talked about going on a trip to that bookstore without me. And I was so sad that we got in the car and went together.
Of course. Got to make things right in the world.
That's right.
And yeah, it was a really lovely day for a drive. And we walked around Bridgeport a little bit. had a great lunch.
Yes, we got some noodles at a Thai place. It was delicious.
Yeah, and then we went into the shop and had a really good browse.
It's a beautiful bookstore in this arcade with a lot of natural sunlight. The roof of the lobby area is glass, pointed glass. It was beautiful. We saw a pigeon walking around on the roof. It was really fun. Or a seagull. I'm not sure which it was. It was a seagull.
With his little orange feet.
Yes.
Splayed out. Yeah.
Really cool. As Chris said, it's a small store, but really well curated. And I found a book it was kind of in the self-help cookbook section called Eat and Flourish, How Food Supports Emotional Well-Being by Mary Beth Albright. And she's talking about what's obvious, which is if we eat well, we feel well, and our gut health is good. But she's also talking about pleasure and how our brains want to feel and experience pleasure. So she actually participates in a study where they put her in an MRI machine looking at her brain. And then she does things like drinks a milkshake to see how her brain reacts to that pleasure, or is it not pleasurable? Oh. So I really appreciated that. There are a few recipes, nothing, like super exciting, but she's trying to make a point that if you eat some of these foods, your brain chemistry will work better and you'll feel better. So I'm about, how far am I into it? 30 pages in, and really enjoying how accessible her writing is because she is a scientist. Again, it's called Eat and Flourish, How Food Supports Emotional Well-Being. Mary Beth Albright, beautiful cover and beautiful bookstore.
Nice. I would really appreciate a bullet-pointed review.
Okay. I will work on that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That's the pleasure of each of us reading different books.
Absolutely. So any other Biblio adventures?
I just had a shorty, thanks to our librarian, Linda Johnson, who keeps our Goodreads shelf in order. She sent us an email and said, "Didn't you read Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier? Just wanted to let you know that the author Jennifer Egan is going to be on Velshie's Banned Book Club to talk about her feelings about Rebecca." And this is a banned book club that he's an MSNBC host, and he hosts this banned book club. So I watched it on YouTube. It's just 12 minutes. I'll put it in the show notes. One of the things I appreciated was he gave a really good synopsis of the book without giving spoilers, which I found really hard to do. And then Jennifer Egan talked about her love of Rebecca when she first read it as, I want to say, like a 12-year-old, and really falling in love with Gothic literature. And she wrote a novel called The Keep that is an ode to Gothic novels.
Yeah, I read that one.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then she's also the author of A Visit to the Goon Squad, or A Visit from the Goon Squad, I think, which I read with a book club. So it was a really interesting conversation. And I appreciate anybody who is encouraging people to read banned books. Thank you, Linda, for letting us know about that. How about upcoming jaunts?
Well, upcoming Couch Biblio adventures, I just wanted to point out to people, if you haven't seen it yet, there is a new series coming from C-SPAN called America's Book Club. I don't know when it's starting. It's just saying this fall. It is going to be hosted by David M. Rubenstein. And some of the authors that they have lined up are pretty big wigs. John Grisham, Henry Louis Gates, David Gran, Walter Isaacson, Arthur Brooks, Stacy Schiff, Jose Andres, and then Justice Amy Coney Barrett, who apparently has a memoir coming out. So I think, from what I understand, he will be in conversation with these authors one-on-one, talking about not just their books, but the ideas that they tend to write about. So keep your eyes out for that, and we'll let you know whenever we hear anything. I believe you'll be able to watch it on YouTube.
Cool. It's a good list of books. Well, September 28th, sponsored by Riverbend Books, which has outposts in both Glastonbury and West Hartford, is an afternoon with the author Geraldine Brooks at Smith Middle School. And I do believe you have to RSVP, so I'll put that link in the show notes. And I think it's from 2 to 4 or 2 to 5. Oh. It's also the same day as our reading salon. So hoping to go there and then get in the car and scurry home for the Zoom meetup.
Nice.
And then October 15th, we have tickets for a matinee performance of Spunk, a play by Zora Neale Hurston over at the Yale Repertory Theater, which I have not been to. I've lived here for 10 years.
I haven't been either.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that surprises me that you and Laura haven't gotten there.
Yeah, Laura's gone. I have not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I did an internship in college at a restaurant right next door. So we used to have actors banging on the door, but I never got to go see a show there. So I'm very excited to do that.
Yeah, me too. Can't wait. What about upcoming reads?
I think I'm going to do it, Chris. I can't wait anymore. I'm going to read All the World Can Hold by Jung Yun. Nice. I know it comes out on your birthday, March 10th, 2026. But every time I open my Kindle, because we got digital ARCs, thank you, NetGalley, I have to read it. I can't wait anymore.
All right.
The suspense is killing me.
I don't want to hear anything about it.
I can't talk about it?
If you talk about it, I'll close my ears at that point.
Okay. Well, you go blah, 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 blah. I mean, I could agree to just tell people I read it and not talk about it. We'll decide. We have time.
Okay.
Also, it's, best laid plans. Who knows what will actually happen? Because we also have 2 short stories that we're going to read with our mystery man, John Valeri.
Yes, we're going to be reading The Mask of the Red Death by Edgar Allan Poe and The Canterville Ghost by Oscar Wilde. And both of these are on the Ghost bingo card.
Yes, and we are going to be reading them out of very specific collections that Chris found, and I will put those in the show notes. Obviously, that doesn't mean you need to read from those collections, but we just thought we would let you know good places to find them.
Yeah, and I think most libraries will have a collection of Poe and Wilde's work. You'll be able to find it there or via Project Gutenberg.
Indeed.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe I'll put that. I will link also the free versions on Project Gutenberg. That's a good idea. And what's that you say? Do we have a read-along coming up?
No, we just had one.
Oh, isn't it the 4th quarter? Aren't we supposed to be making a big announcement?
I suppose.
Did y'all think we forgot about you? I want to say we teased Q4 read along in the newsletter that just went out. We have a newsletter we send out once a month on the last day of the month. And we put out a challenge to people that if they were risk takers and they were interested in signing up for the read along before they knew what the pick was, to please send an email. And we have some risk takers out there, Chris.
Nice.
Yeah, we have a handful of people who have already signed up and they don't even know what the book is.
Well, I hope they're going to be excited to hear about it because we've chosen one by a prominent horror writer who is a big name in the genre these days, has won a lot of awards, has been up for a lot of awards from organizations and like reader votes and things like that. It's a man, which is a departure for us, but we thought we would have a little diversity in that direction. Which
is what we did actually Q4 last year. We had Brian Kennedy's novel.
Right.
Let's keep talking so we don't have to tell everybody.
All right. Well, it's another book that has the word house in the title.
Which we really wanted to accomplish.
Yes. So each of the 4 books we've read this year have house in the title. So as you can imagine, this one has to do with some kind of haunted house.
Indeed.
Because that's our ghost theme.
Yes. And as you can also imagine, we might have had to stare over a stack of about 25 books to make this decision.
It was a hard decision.
It was. We really challenge ourselves to come up with these 4 books in a year. And part of it is, we want them to be readily available. We want them to be available on audio and in print and in libraries, etc. We did get an email from a listener over the pond who asked that they be readily available in the UK. I'm not sure we accomplished that, Georgia. I'm sorry. We've done our best.
Well, this one is by an author I've read before, and he's written one of my favorite recent horror/vampire novels. Really enjoyed it. His books tend to be set in Charleston, South Carolina. And by this point, I think a couple listeners know who we're talking about. Grady Hendrix. We are going to be reading his book, How to Sell a Haunted House.
Yippee!
Crickets. Chirp. Chirp.
No, it is really hard to make these decisions. I'm actually really excited to read a Grady Hendrix. We know our mystery man, John Valeri, is a big fan of his as well. And when he's been on past episodes, he often mentions Grady Hendrix as a go-to. Chris has loved the
Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, which I highly recommend. And then also the Final Girl Support Group. And he's had 12 books he's published. I'm not really sure. But, he's somebody whose books are bestsellers. And we thought it would be interesting because one of the things when we choose these themes, we want to understand the theme or the genre that we've chosen. And so, we started with Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House, which is a classic haunted house literary fiction story. And so to end it now with something that's very popular, published in 2023, very recently, it is available in paperback. That is a bestseller. We thought it would be interesting to look at these 4 novels through that lens to see what was going on when Shirley Jackson published this. How was that novel received? And then jumping forward to 2023, what's going on now when it comes to writing about haunted houses?
Yes.
And then in between, we had The Good House by Tananarive Due, which was published, I believe, in the 90s.
And then The Upstairs House by Julia Fine, which was published in 21, I want to say.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
And that wasn't a bestseller, but it was a strong seller. But Grady Hendrix is somebody who has such name recognition nowadays in the genre. We thought we would end with a bigwig.
So thank you to all of you who are reading along. Our Zoom conversation on that one is going to be Sunday, November 9th. At 7 p.m. Eastern. This is over 400 pages, so we wanted to also give you a couple months to get it read. Get your hands on a copy or on the ebook, on the audiobook, which is around 13 hours, I think.
Yeah, the hardcover version of this book is 419 pages, so we don't want you to think it's 499.
Yeah.
Because that's a big difference.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
We're super excited to read it. We're super excited to read along with all of you. On the next episode, we are going to share with you some of the other titles that were in consideration. There were many.
Yeah, it's a great challenge to choose a themed book for ghost stories because so many of the ghost stories we found were more like mystery thrillers and somebody's haunted by their past, which could end up being the case for this book. Who knows?
Right. We've also talked about how we don't like to pre-read. We like to be surprised right along with you as we're reading.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, we do not read ahead of time.
Yeah.
So we're looking at the blurb and some reviews, and then if other friends have read it.
And availability, etc.
Yeah. And, when it comes to friends reading books, one friend could hate it, the other friend could love it.
Yeah, we also try to read things you all haven't read yet, which is another challenge. So anyway, enough about all of that. Were there any other books, upcoming reads? No.
Yes, I'm going to be reading Death Comes for the Archbishop by Willa Cather. It is not a ghost story. But that's next up for Colleen's year of reading Willa Cather. So looking forward to that one. It's not, I've reread it a couple times, but it's not one I'm super familiar with.
All right, everyone. What are you reading? Let us know. We always want to know everything about you. Email us at bookcougars@gmail.com.
Dangerous, Emily. But anyway, we wish you all lots of happy reading. Thanks for listening to The Book Cougars with Chris Wallach and Emily Fine. We'll be back again with another episode in 2 weeks. Until then, come chat with us on social media, Goodreads, or email us at bookcougars@gmail.com. If you'd like to help support our podcast, please tell others about us, leave a review wherever you listen, and consider becoming a patron. Even $1 a month is a big help. Learn more about that on our website, bookcougars.com, where you'll find the show notes for this and all of our past episodes.
Thanks, everybody.
This episode was edited by Pat Keogh Sound Design.